Good evening. Welcome to Northbeat. I'm Megan Roberts. The coroner's inquest into the deaths of 4 Indigenous women at the Whitehorse Emergency Shelter is underway. The focus of the first 2 days was on Cassandra Warville and Miranda Tisha Charlie, both members of the Vuntut-Gwitchin First Nation. They died at the shelter from toxic drugs on the same day in January 2022. Virginie Ann has the story, but first a warning, the following contains graphic details.
Emotions have been running high right here, where the coroner's inquest will be held for the next 3 weeks. Yesterday, during the opening remarks, the family described Cassandra Warville as always laughing and Miranda Tisha Charlie as a kind, deeply talented hockey player. The families have put up photos on display inside the inquest room, where the public is invited to write goodbye notes to the women. The presiding coroner and the jury have been hearing from several witnesses already, including RCMP officers who reviewed disturbing security camera footage from the shelter on the night the women died. The footage shows that Warville and Tisha Charlie went into a shower room together, and that no one checked on them for more than 3 hours. Part of that footage showed shelter staff dragging the women's lifeless bodies from the shower room. That was shocking to the families, some of them who cried, screamed, and reacted with disbelief when the video played. As a result, the inquest had to be temporarily adjourned. Earlier today, some of the staff working that night took turn in answering questions. They spoke about how understaffed they were, with multiple tasks to do all at once. The shelter's policies, as well as the lack of training regarding overdose and how to handle intoxicated people, has also been part of the discussion. The inquest will also look in the coming days in the death of Josephine Elizabeth Hager and Darla Skokum, who also died at the shelter in early 2023. Virginie Ann, CBC News, Whitehorse.
If you need support after what you've just seen, or if you are attending any of the proceedings, you can call the numbers on your screen, 867-456-3838. You can also call toll-free at 1-866-456-3838. The mayor of Yellowknife says the end of diamond mines in the Northwest Territories is a territorial problem, not just a Yellowknife problem. Rebecca Alty says when the mines shut, it'll impact everybody. Her comments come after a northern economist sounded the alarm at a city council meeting yesterday, saying when the mines go, over 1,000 jobs go too. Alty says schools, health centers, and services will all be affected, and she says the city is preparing.
We have been doing our economic development in regards to housing. That's a key one that, we hear from people that, workers can't come up because they don't have enough housing. So really focusing on that. The zoning bylaw, when we approved in March 2022, was about increasing density across the city. We're working on bringing 5 parcels of land in the city for more residential. Fingers crossed, we're hoping for some federal funding on the Housing Accelerator Fund. So a lot of work that city's been doing is in that housing, but the other opportunity is our convening power. So really trying to get the federal government, the Canadian government all at the same table, talking and creating, that plan, that vision, where are we going from here.
Alty says the closure of the mines needs to be taken seriously. She says the problem can be solved and work needs to begin right away. Diavik Diamond Mine is expected to close in 2 years. Akati and Gahcho Kué are both expected to close in about 6 years. About 200 liters of petroleum oil spilled in Resolute Bay last week. The spill happened at the hamlet's tank farm on Friday when an employee was fueling a tanker. Nunavut Community and Government Services says the fuel did not reach any bodies of water, and the snow that's been contaminated at the site has been extracted and moved to a protected area. The department says the cleanup is complete, but it will continue monitoring the site, and it's not aware of any damage to the environment. Small businesses in the NWT are looking ahead to the wildfire season with concern. Earlier this year, the territorial government warned it could be just as dry and fire-prone as last year. Based on snowpack measurements this spring, the NWT has seen less than the usual amount of moisture added to the environment. Joanne Stassen has more on what it all means.
It's kind of scary for the summer because last year it got hot really fast and the snow was gone.
Bobby Drygees points out the new fire break outside Detta, built less than a half a kilometre from his tourist camp. Drygees says the winter tourist season has been good, but things aren't looking great for the summer. He says bookings aren't where they should be and people seem hesitant.
They're just thinking about they're waiting and to see the predictions and all that too, and because everybody's saying there's not much snow right now.
Already, one organization has canceled an international conference that was scheduled for Yellowknife in June, in part due to concerns of another wildfire evacuation.
So it was really important for us not to add to the complexity of what might already be a complex situation in the Northwest Territories. But as a small organization, we also had to think about, when you're planning a conference like that, there are provisions around cancellation with hotels and, meeting spaces and all of that sort of thing that we had to sort of consider as well.
Adrian Bell is the president of the Yellowknife Chamber of Commerce.
Obviously, the worst scenario for the small business community would be a repeat of last year. But second to that is not having a repeat of last year, but having the rest of Canada and the world assume that we are and staying away.
Bell says the cancellation is a bit of a wake-up call for the government and groups like his to get on top of messaging.
Not to diminish the risk, but the fact is that quite a bit of forest, at least on a couple sides of Yellowknife, burned down last year. A lot of fuel was removed from the equation. And I would love to talk to some folks in forestry management to get a better sense of what that means for the likelihood of a repeat. It seems to me to be less likely.
Drygees says he planned to expand hiking trails around his camp this summer, but with bookings down and the prospect of another dry summer, he's focusing on fire prevention.
A lot of things that we've got to prepare for and get the water pumps out and hoses and everything just in case, and got to make sure we plan ahead.
That was the CBC's Joanne Stassen reporting from Detta. Europe's highest human rights court made a historic ruling today about climate change. It ruled in favor of a group of Swiss women who said their government's actions to fight climate change were inadequate. Tricia Kindelman has more.
What the court is saying is that the Swiss government is leaving what they called critical gaps in their infrastructure and their attempts at reducing their emissions targets. There's this group of women that brought this case to this international court. We know there's about 2,000 members of this women's group. Their average age is about 74, and they're saying that they are being directly affected by this increasing temperature that we're seeing around the globe, saying that the heat that we're experiencing everywhere is really impacting them, especially during the summer. There has been a steady increase, particularly through European countries we've seen as well. And this ruling is actually coming the same day, new numbers showing that trend is not stopping. They're saying that we are now in our 10th month of the highest temperature record. The month was almost 2 degrees warmer than an estimated March average between the years 1850 and 1900, what we know as the pre-industrial period. A lot of emotions in the air today as this ruling was read out.
Positively shocked, so happy, because we could do something. We could do something. We could contribute to the future, to a better future for our children.
There were 2 other cases that the court did throw out, though. One of those involved a former mayor of a French coastal community. They threw that one out because he's no longer a resident there, so they say that he can no longer claim to be the victim of this instance. And then the other ruling was actually brought by 6 kids from Portugal.
That was the CBC's Tricia Kindelman. A new training program will help Inuit find jobs, building the housing their territory so desperately needs. The Makigiakta Inuit Training Corporation and NCC Development announced a $4.9 million partnership. The deal will be used to train Inuit to become construction workers. Nunavut will be trained in housing construction, which will help the territorial government's Nunavut 3000 housing initiative. The partnership will last for 6 years. NCC Development's chairman says training local will lessen Nunavut's reliance on southern workers and open up existing housing units.
Well, that's the whole point of having this training program, is to reduce the general labor, southern general labor, so the labor will be based in these communities. That's the end result that we're working on. And with this funding we're going to be provided, we'll be able to focus on a long-term plan, training program and the strategy to meet that goal.
Flaherty says the training consists of 2 phases, 10 weeks of in-class learning, followed by work on actual sites. The chair of Makiyakta says Inuit want to work.
Our job is to make sure Inuit are prepared so that they can take on the jobs. And I think we've done a number of reports over the years where we cost out how not implementing Article 23 costs lots of money, not only to Inuit who are losing out on salary dollars, and when Inuit lose out on salary dollars, they're not able to buy expensive hunting equipment, and so then they're less likely to take part in traditional activities to provide good food and nutritious food, preferred food for Inuit.
Training programs will be available in 8 Nunavut communities across the 3 regions. The City of Yellowknife unveiled its new transit fleet today. The 8 new buses will serve regular and express routes in the city. They're wheelchair accessible and they're more environmentally friendly compared to the old buses. The city partnered with Transdev Canada, a mobility company, to acquire the fleet.
These buses have an independent front suspension with a kneeling feature and a flip-out ramp, which is an auto-leveling style ramp, so it will do its best to level to whatever surface it lands on the side of the road. And then once that's occurred, you can wheel the wheelchair rider on. There's locations for 2 wheelchairs on these vehicles, and we use a Q-straint technology to secure them to the vehicle inside, and once they're secured, then you can carry on with your route.
Some other features include automatic stop announcements, route improvements, and the introduction of an app that can display bus times and capacity. The City of Yellowknife says the buses will begin their routes soon.
Priya doesn't love exercising, but loves the way it makes her feel. Max doesn't love cooking, but loves homemade meals with his kids. Paul doesn't love doing his taxes, but loves getting the benefits and credits he qualified for. Learn more about benefits and credits like the GST HST credit and Canada Workers Benefit at canada.ca/every dollar counts. A message from the Government of Canada.
What does it take to reach the top? Join me, Ian Hannamansing, as I get to know some truly inspirational people who share the secrets of their success.
If you want to talk about one moment, it's a moment where I would live or die.
It changed everything on CBC News Explore.
Sipping on a bit of Henny, can I get a little Remy? Feeling heavy, chilling but I'm feeling ready. Pulled up in a big old Chevy.
People in the Yukon are mourning the loss of Elder Percy Henry. The Tondakwetchin citizen died over the weekend. He was a former chief and a champion of the Han language. I met Percy in the summer of 2022 to learn more about his efforts to preserve the Tondak dialect of Han. Here's that piece.
There is a spot in Tombstone territory. Family cabins are shaded by trees, and 95-year-old Percy Henry has plans to spruce it up a bit.
So I sort of hunt to do something with this. Get cat level all this down.
In this space, with his wife and granddaughter nearby, Percy shares stories of his life, of his knowledge, and of his language.
Jijik na kai de kairo. Ikotaisi fresh bush truck. You pull it up.
Percy is the last fluent speaker of the Trondek dialect of Han, the traditional language of the Trondek-Quechin First Nation. Han runs through this family. They've each played a part in its preservation and future. And at the center of it all,
Elder Percy Henry and I teach kids Han language.
Percy is an unlikely teacher. His journey with Han didn't start until he was an adult. In fact, it's his third language. Quechin is Percy's native language, followed by English and then Han. Percy learned Han through immersion, working alongside Han speaker Stanley Roberts at a sawmill in Mayo. Stanley only spoke Han to Percy, forcing him to learn the language over about 8 years.
And he just picked up the language from then on because, of course, Quechin and Han are quite similar. Drinhozo, Shojre, Georgette McLeod, Dawson Hooch Inn, I live in Dawson, and Trondek-Quechin Deech A, I am Trondek-Quechin, Jur Deech A, I'm Wolf, and Trondek-Quechin Han Hejik Treda Hok I work for Trondek-Quechin Han language.
That introduction in Han, this song and dance, they're all triumphs and perseverance. Battles won in the fight to save Han from the brink of extinction.
The last stragglers had attained their Mecca. The miners in the creeks had finished their winter's work. The carnival had reached its climax.
Everything changed for the Trondek-Quechin during the gold rush of 1898. Dawson City swelled to about 30,000 people, the largest city west of Winnipeg and north of Seattle. The Trondek-Quechin were forced from the area and relocated to their Moosehide camp downriver from Dawson. That upheaval and the colonial systems that still exist today nearly wiped out the language and culture of the Trondek-Quechin. In the 1990s, there was new hope and renewed effort to bring Han back, starting in the classroom. And at the front of the class, another person central to the modern story of Han, a translator, a teacher, and also a student of Percy.
Shulre Angie Joseph Rare. Oh, Percy, he's always been my teacher and my mentor. Even today he is, we work really well together. Yeah, he was one of our teachers, and he's our only teacher today.
Angie worked as the language coordinator for the Trondek-Quechin First Nation. She and Percy started their language work together in 1991. Angie helped capture the language from speakers, including Percy. And that's still a big part of Percy's work, recording the language on tape so it can be saved and studied. And that work is intense. Percy will speak and then translate, often for long stretches.
Grandpa.
A little like this.
Chu cut Nathan.
Chu cut Nathan.
Chu kat Nathan.
You want cold water?
Chu kat Nathan. You want cold water. In that phrase, in all of Percy's words, there's a roadmap for Han. Georgette and her team use his words to create a structure for Han, sometimes getting help from linguists outside the community. And through Percy, they discover verb structure and vocabulary.
I still have epiphanies to this day, and I'm like, oh, I understand now this connection between these various things just by looking at the language and trying to look at the writing of the language and then talking with Percy about it.
Despite the hard work of the Trondheim, Han is still in trouble. Percy is the only fluent speaker of the Trondheim dialect of Han. Now there is another Han dialect from Eagle, Alaska. For years, the two sides have worked together to keep Han alive. Today, there are 5 fluent Eagle dialect speakers. That means in total, there are 6 known fluent speakers of Han between the two communities.
What I think is going to happen is that we're going to have to heavily rely on that other dialect of the language and other First Nation languages to keep carrying our Han language forward.
And the language is moving forward. Han is on the buildings of Dawson City. There's a treasure trove of resources online. It's even on social media.
And this is all a result of the work that we do with Percy.
I don't know how he did it. Like, honestly, it must have been like so much hard work. I mean, Han isn't even a written language originally. My name is Annie, and I'm from Dawson. I grew up there my whole life.
Annie Prosy is Percy's granddaughter, and also, in a way, his biographer. The Trondheim First Nation asked Annie to record her grandpa's life story. They worked together for almost a year to create a film that captures Percy and Han. Annie says she always thinks about how hard it must be for her grandpa to be the last Han speaker, to have no one to talk to in Han, and the knowledge that your memory is the key to keeping a language alive.
I kind of want to get to a point where I'm able to sort of have a conversation with my grandpa in Han, because I think it'd be kind of special to go there and speak with him in his language.
He is trying to gift the language to the next generation of speakers.
Percy has many students, many people who learn from him. And because he's on tape, people will be able to learn from him for years to come. Not just about the language, but about what it holds.
Your relationship with the world is sort of reflected through the language and how you speak of it.
Our identity and our culture and the way we live are all one. One cannot live without the other.
Annie says her grandpa taught her to go into things with an open mind and a willingness to learn. And he taught her to listen. She urges other young people to seek out their elders with the same openness.
They just need to step out of their comfort zone and approach their elders and say, hey, I want to learn. Can you tell me about this?
Let the elder talk. You gotta listen.
Through his work with his granddaughter and with the Trondheim First Nation, through his gift of the Han language, people will always be able to listen to Elder Percy Henry. Megan Roberts, CBC News, in Tombstone Territorial Park, Yukon. That piece first aired in September of 2022. Percy Henry died over the weekend, but as you heard, his teachings will live on. The Gwich'in Wellness Camp near Inuvik is slowly opening its doors. It's been closed for years and its healing power has been missed. Now, renovations are bringing new life to the camp. Des Loreen went to check it out.
Being Gwich'in means, to me, having a connection to the land and a relationship to the land, and myself personally, that is where I feel like my best, and especially when things are stressful, coming to the land is medicine for me.
Just 15 minutes down the river from Inuvik,
a place to connect to the culture. The Gwich'in Tribal Council is doing its final preparations, and once it's fully open, the camp will mean so much to so many people in the area.
The primary purpose will be for the ongoing health and wellness of our Gwich'in participants, but eventually we would like to offer services to Gwich'in and non-Gwich'in residents of the Beaufort Delta region. There is also an opportunity for us to have this as a meeting center.
The GTC Wellness Camp will be used to hold conferences and healing gatherings. There are over a dozen beds, an industrial kitchen, and a large room for meetings. Local artists prefer the quiet environment to help with their concentration.
I think it's important to come out here with a group of people and try and leave your technology behind. I mean, yeah, that's important and everything, but if you just leave it behind and stay here, get reconnected with the land.
They're all different sizes. This is a bit of a bigger room here.
The camp was built in 2007, but closed in 2012 due to high operating expenses. The installation of solar panels and wood stoves are expected to keep the future costs down. Programs are already being held at the camp, with more being announced later this spring. Des Loreen, CBC News, Inuvik.
Kids in Rankin Inlet turned a negative into a positive yesterday after a water line burst in their community. They gathered their tools and their hockey gear and turned the pooling water into a hockey rink. Around 20 kids spent the day on the ice playing from morning right up until bedtime, and it looks like a pretty good time there. And that is Northbeat for tonight. For news anytime, head to cbc.ca/north. Thank you for watching. I'm Megan Roberts. Have a good night.
What happens when we transform the country into one massive obstacle course? 20 total strangers are about to find out.
Okay, game on!
Relationships will be forged and crushed.
I want to rip their heads off.
In an all-out battle for glory.
Oh my God! I'm glad that there's cameras around. Yeah, me too. Do it in, replay.
Only one thing's for sure. They are not ready for what's coming.
Let's go, baby!
Hello. Dad is the master of marketing.
So handsome, both of them. How big is my face? Bigger.
Dad's a superstar wherever he goes.
2, 1.
Go back to
Daddy marketing works.
Her particular skill set can be helpful to us.
She's a con artist.
I need to get off that boat and back to being a full-time detective, and you need to stay out of prison. The best way we do that is to keep our heads down and do as we're told.
What does it take to reach the top? Meet some truly inspirational people as they share the challenges and secrets of their success. It changed everything on CBC News Explore.